أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم. أما بعد, dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue our series of sessions about Uthman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, one among the 10 promised Jannah. And this is the third session. And we did talk about Uthman at the beginning in the first and second session. The first one was we identified who is Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, his tribes, his lineage, his role in even before Islam and after Islam, and how he got married to the daughters of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then we talked about his contribution during the era of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and then Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Today we will continue and we will talk about how Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu was appointed as a Khalifa. And since here we're not talking about just a history, maybe we all know the history of Uthman. We could go and open any book of the Sirah, we could understand and read how he became a Khalifa, and then we could go on. But the point is, we need to understand and study the Sirah of these stars of the Ummah. These are the, as Rasulullah said, my companions like a star. بِأَيِّهُمْ اِقْتَدَيْتُمْ اِهْتَدَيْتُمْ. Whom you follow, you will be guided. My companions like stars. These are the stars of the Ummah. These are the one who spread Islam. These are the one who is behind the existence of Islam all over the world. They are the one who is behind, like, opening lands and spreading Islam. So the point here is what they have done in order to achieve these objectives. And since we are talking about not any Sahabi, we are talking about a Sahabi who was a Khalifa, who was the head of the state for almost 12 years. And since we are talking about this, I would like, before we go into the details of how Uthman radiallahu anhu became a Khalifa and how the Muslimin voted for Uthman to be a Khalifa, before this I would like to touch on two things, because they are related. And in order to understand the importance of appointing a ruler to the Muslimin, even right after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what was the Sahaba, how they reacted, we need to understand two things. Number one, what is the ruling system in Islam? How does it look like? Is it really similar to any of the ruling systems that we all know over the history, or it's different? Number two, we need to know what is the method of appointing a leader to the Muslimin. We have not witnessed this. The Ummah does not maybe know the details of this and the importance of this. How do we nominate, first of all? How do we vote? How do we elect? How do we choose a head of the state? What is the process? And is that process something only limited to that time, 1400 years ago, or that process, it's part of our Sharia, part of our Islam, part of our Aqidah, part of our Deen, that the Ummah now has to resume and bring about? And then we will talk about the styles of nominating and the styles of voting for a representative to the Ummah and for a president to the Ummah, if you will. And we will talk about in details about Uthman, the style of choosing Uthman as a Khalifa. How did it happen? And how, we'll see, it was so important to the point that, for example, as we'll see, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, for 3 days and 3 nights, he did not had enough sleep. As we'll see, he did not. Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, one of the nominees, he did not have enough sleep for 3 days and 3 nights until this job was done. So let's go first to the first point, which is what is the structure, how the ruling system of Islam looks like. When we look in the history, we see that, for example, along the history there is a royal system, kingdoms. Until now we have this. Is there any similarity between Islam and this? If we look at the royal system, we find two issues in it. Number one, the king comes as he like inherits power from his father or his brother and stays within the same family. And the people and the Ummah has no say on this. Has no say on this. People do not even choose them. And in some systems, the king is written in the constitution that the king is above the constitution. Above the constitution means nobody can hold the king accountable. That is written in the constitutions along the history and even now. When we look at Islam, Islam completely different. For example, one of the pillars of Islam, of the ruling system in Islam, is that authority belongs to the Ummah. Authority belongs to the nation. Means what? Means that the Ummah is the only one who has the right to choose their representatives without any enforcement, as we will see. And that's what happens during the four Khalifah Rashidin. These are our models. These are the ones that we are looking for. These are the ones we are following, or we are supposed and we have actually to follow. So authority belongs to the Ummah means the Ummah is the only entity that has the right to choose their leaders. Nobody else, willingly. In royal system, that does not exist. In Islam, the Khalifa himself and anyone in a ruling position is subject to be held accountable. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam in one hadith said, when the Jewish came to ask him, because one of the Jewish he steal, and he was from the high rank, as they say, from the honorable level, and they said, we need to look for an excuse. We cannot apply the had, the rules of stealing. Then he said, Wallahi law anna Fatima binta Muhammadin saraqat laqata'tu yadaha. By Allah, if Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, steals, I would have cut her hand. There is nothing above the constitution or above the law in Islam. Everybody is under accountability. Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu ta'ala, one time he was addressing the people. And one of the Muslimin, he saw him wearing like a full, garments, not the one that you usually see, and he was very tall. So one garment was not enough for him. So they noticed that he's used two pieces of cloth, stitch them together and wear them. And he said, Asmi'u asma'u wa ati'u, listen and obey. Then one of the Sahaba said, no, la sam'a wa la ta'a. He's talking to the head of the state in the middle of the masjid. He said, la sam'a wa la ta'a. We don't hear, we don't obey. He said, how come? He said, how come you, from the booty or from the income that was distributed among the people, among the men, you are getting two pieces of cloth and we are getting one? Then he said, and he asked his son, Abdullah ibn Umar, saying, would you please answer him? He said, yes, I donated, I gave my share to my father because he is very tall, one of them is not enough. So in Islam, nothing above the constitution and the law of Islam. When we look at the structure of Islam, can we say it's like an imperial system in which imperial or empire, the empire rules over people with different ethnics, different colors, different nations, different culture. In the imperial system, the one who are close to the capital or in the main state, they have some privileges that the people away from it do not have. And in Islam, as we said, everybody is equal. Nothing. Everybody who holds the citizenship of the Islamic State, he has the same rights, whether Muslim or even non-Muslims, black or white. It doesn't matter about his ethnics. He is the same in rights and the same in obligation. So when we look at Islam, Islam looked at the citizens with from the same view. It was not imperial at all. Okay, was it, let's say, a federal system in which there is a central government that has certain constitution, and then each entity in the state or each province in the state, they have their own system and they have their own economic system, or it's one unit? When we look at Islam, Islam was not a federal. We call it a system of wahda, a system of unity in which all the states in the Islamic State or all the provinces in Islamic State, they have the same rights. I mean by that, let's say the capital was in Medina, or the capital at one point was in Damascus or Baghdad. The province that was close to Baghdad is dealt with the same way they dealt with a province in far west, such as Morocco or Tunisia or Algeria. The same means in the federal you will find like rich state and poor state. Why? Because it depends on the income of the state. In Islam, that doesn't exist. In Islam, the state or the province, if they need services and there is no enough income, these services must be provided. Must be provided. So in Islam, it is not a federal. Okay, was it, let's say, a republic system in which sovereignty or siyada belongs to the people? This is absolutely the opposite of Islam. In republic system, the republic system actually came as a response to the act of the church and the royal systems in Europe in what's so-called the Dark Ages. Because the people, they were sick of something called religion, which was interfering with their life. So they were sick of this. So they said, you know what, we don't want your system, we don't want your rules. We want the people to put their rules. So sovereignty belongs to the people. In Islam, when we sovereignty comes from the word in Arabic siyada or sayyid, the master. Who has the right to say this is right and this is wrong? This is allowed and this is not allowed. This is good, this is bad. Who has the right to say that? Who has the right to tell us what to do and not to do? It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's the shara'. It's the shara'. So none of these systems that we have seen look like the system of Islam. So Islam came with a unique structure that never exists. And unfortunately nowadays, the Ummah, the people don't even realize this. One time I was watching, an interview with somebody from Tunisia. That person, he was saying, we want the Khalifah, we don't want any other system. So one of the journalists, she came to him and she told him, I have a question for you. What's this system that you are calling for? He said, the system of Khalifah. She said, okay, is this like a royal system? Is it really a republic system? It's an imperial system? He said, let's count. You have royal system, you have republic system, you have imperial system. Add to these that are known something that people don't know, called the system of Khilafah. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam established in Medina. And this is what Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the one we are talking about right now, who implemented, the same as Umar, the same as Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So it was completely unique. So when you talk about Uthman or Umar or Ali radiallahu anhum or Abu Bakr, we are not talking about just a personality which was so great. No, we are talking a personality who has a unique role in Islam. We are talking about a person who was, and at one point, the head of the state, of the Ummah, where his letter, when he sent his letter, shakes the thrones of kings and empires. A system that lasts for many decades, many decades, even later at the time, for example, at the time of Abdul Rahman al-Dakhil, for example, Abdul Rahman al-Nasir. Abdul Rahman al-Nasir was one of the leaders of the Muslims in Spain. And his time was the peak. And his time, where Europe used to live in the Dark Ages, in Cordoba, we had universities, schools, where the kings of Europe used to send their children to receive the education in the Muslim world. One of these incidents, the king of Britain, he sent his daughter to receive the education with a letter saying, from the king of Britain to the king of Arab in Spain, Abdul Rahman al-Nasir, I am sending my daughter to receive the education, so please give her a special care. And he signed it with this, your servant, King Richard. This was the way they used to, not like now. They send the letter, for example, telling him, I want you to pay $100 billion now, or your throne will be shaking. We put you in power, we remove you from power. This is the way they talk to them right now. We see this. So when we study the history, we need to see what went wrong in the Ummah and what we are missing. So this is briefly the structure of Islam. It is unique. Unique in terms of the structure, in terms of the systems, the administration. All of these are different. And the system of Islam, or the ruling system of Islam, is based on 4 pillars. If one of them is missing, it's no more a ruling system of Islam. Number 1, and there's so much details, it's not the time to go and talk about the details and how these pillars were derived from Sharia. No, I just want to mention them. Number 1, sovereignty belongs to Sharia. Means Ash-Sharia, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who has the right to legislate, to put the constitution, to do all of this. Our job is to read and adapt and implement. Not to come up with the rules from our own mind or based on our desires. No. That's number 1. Number 2, authority belongs to the Ummah. Means that the Ummah is the only entity who has the right to choose their ruler. Willingly, without any enforcement. Number 3, there must be only one ruler, one Khalifah to the Muslimin at a time. We will see this, how Umar radiallahu anhu was addressing the Sahaba when he was dying, and when he was nominating who could take his position after he passed away. We will see how that was very important. One ruler only. Number 4, that ruler is the only one who has the right to adopt from Quran and Sunnah what he needs to run the affairs and take care of the affairs of the people. Whether based on his own ijtihad or based on another mujtahid ijtihad, as long he adopts something that is driven from Quran and Sunnah. This is the ruling system in Islam. Now we come to the other point, which is what is the method of appointing a Khalifa. In Islam, when we say a method, it's something fard to follow. And the method does not change. For example, when we pray, all the Muslims, they follow the same instructions. That is the method of prayer. It does not change. And this method comes from Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed us this, either in Sunnah or from Quran or from the actions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like how we pray, how we fast, how we perform Hajj. All of these come from the umbrella of method, action, mechanism. When it comes to this matter, which is choosing an Imam or Khalifa or Amir al-Mu'mineen, this method Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or Islam call it al-bay'ah. Called bay'ah, or the pledge of allegiance. Bay'ah. And the bay'ah in Islam, it is a contract between 2 entities. One entity is the Ummah. And the other entity is one person only. That person, if he accepts the conditions of that contract, his title became, based on Islam, based on Sharia, based on the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his title became either Khalifa or Amirul Mu'mineen or Imam. This is how the Sahaba named them. Either Khalifa or Imam or Amirul Mu'mineen. Once that bay'ah is done. What are the conditions of this bay'ah? The conditions of this bay'ah between the Ummah that we choose you, we accept you as a ruler as long as you rule us with Quran and Sunnah. If he accepts, then he becomes the head of the state and his obedience becomes an obligation in all of the Ummah. In all of the Ummah. And this bay'ah, it was proven in Quran and Sunnah. I will just mention few evidence about this bay'ah. One of them, an ayah in Surah Al-Mumtahana, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها النبي إذا جاءك المؤمنات يبايعنك على أن لا يشركن بالله شيئا ولا يسرقن ولا يزنين ولا يقتلن أولادهن ولا يأتين ببهتان يفترينه من بين أيديهن وأرجلهن ولا يعصينك في معروف فبايعهن. O Prophet, if the woman believer, they come and they were sick, they wanted to give you the pledge of allegiance. And here we're talking about the Prophet. When we say a pledge of allegiance to the Prophet, we are not talking about prophethood. A pledge of a prophethood. Because the prophethood, it's a matter of belief in heart. I believe in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a prophet. This does not need a pledge of allegiance. When we talk about pledge of allegiance, it means what? It means I am taking you as a ruler. I am taking you as a ruler. And this ayah was revealed during the Madani era. So after the fact that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated to Medina and he became the head of the state. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if the mu'minat, the women, the believers, they come and they want to give you the pledge of allegiance with these conditions. Number one, that they will not commit shirk in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they will not steal, that they will not commit adultery, that they will not kill their children, that they will not fabricate anything, and they will obey you, then you should give them you should accept their pledge of allegiance. So this is an evidence in Quran that the method to take person as a leader is through something called bay'ah. And in Sahih al-Bukhari, in a hadith that was narrated by Ubadah ibn al-Samit radiyallahu anhu, he said, بايعنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم على السمع والطاعة بايعنا. We gave the oath of allegiance, the pledge of allegiance to Allah's messenger, that we would listen and obey. في المنشط والمكره, both at the time of ease and the time of hardship, and that we would not fight against the ruler or disobey him, and would stand firm for the truth or say the truth wherever and whenever we might be. And in the way of Allah, in the sake of Allah, we would not be afraid of the blame of the blamers. لا نخشى في الله لومة لائم. So this is another evidence that the method to have a ruler is the bay'ah. Another hadith, and this will show the importance of bay'ah, or the importance of the pledge of allegiance. In Sahih Muslim, it was narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, وَمَنْ بَايَعَ إِمَامًا فَأَعْطَاهُ صَفْقَةَ يَدِهِ وَثَمَرَةَ قَلْبِهِ فَلْيُطِعْهُ إِنِ اسْتَطَاعَ فَإِنْ جَاءَ آخَرُ يُنَازِعُهُ فَاضْرِبُوا عُنُقَ الْآخَرِ. It says, whoever gives a pledge of allegiance to a ruler and gives him the grasp of his hand and the fruit of his heart, it means the bay'ah has to be given with the hand. We give you the bay'ah, all right? And we submit to this bay'ah. We submit ourselves to this bay'ah. We have to be sincere to this bay'ah. Then he shall obey him as much as he can. And if another person comes and challenge him, it means challenge the imam that I give him the bay'ah, I give him the pledge, then the Prophet ﷺ said, strike his neck. فَاضْرِبُوا عُنُقَ الْآخَرِ. Drib, strike his neck. Look, this is like, it shows how important was the bay'ah, and it is the only method to choose a ruler. These are few ahadith. There's so many ahadith and ayat that talks about. And we have seen also when we study the seerah of the first four khulafa, we have seen how important that was. How important that was. The method is the bay'ah. However, the style of the bay'ah, how do we give the bay'ah? How do we choose? Bay'ah, it's a contract, as we said. In another word, I would say it is how do we vote for the Khalifa? How do we elect? How do we choose our Khalifa, since authority belongs to the Ummah? In the four Khulafa, the bay'ah was given to them in four different styles. None of them look like the same with the other. Completely different. And in these four, two of them we had more than one nominees. And two of them we had only one nominee. At the time of Umar ibn Khattab, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, when the Prophet ﷺ died, the Muslimin left him unburied, and then they went to a place and they were discussing this because it was so important. So the nominees were like four. Ubadah ibn Samit from Al-Ansar, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Abu Ubaidah, and Umar ibn Khattab. Four. The talk among these Sahaba, leaving the Prophet ﷺ unburied, was about who is our next Khalifa, who would be taking the position of the Prophet ﷺ as a ruler, not as a prophet. So through the discussion back and forth, Abu Ubaidah and Umar radiallahu anhum, they were not competing with Abu Bakr. They can't. Themselves, they said no. So the competition then, or the list of nominees, was like shortlisted to two, between Ubadah ibn Samit from Al-Ansar and Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. Abu Bakr Siddiq, he said, I am willing to give the bay'ah to either Umar or Abu Ubaidah. Then Umar said, no, how could we, any one of you, he's talking to the Ansar and the Muslimin, can any one of you accept to lead Abu Bakr in the prayer? To lead the one who was with the company of the Prophet ﷺ during his journey, who was in the cave, the one whom Rasul ﷺ ordered him to lead the prayer when he was sick. After these words, everybody kept silent. Then Umar right away, he put his hand in the hand of Abu Bakr and he told him, I will give you the pledge of allegiance to rule with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This was one style. Another style, when Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu felt that he was sick and he is about to die, the Muslimin, they came to him and they told him, why don't you nominate somebody for us? It's better for us to have somebody to give the bay'ah later on, before your death, and then we will have a lot of disputes. Then Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, this is totally another style. So he started consulting the Sahaba individually. One of them is Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu. When he called him, he told him, what do you think about Umar? Then Uthman said, you asking me about somebody that you know more than me. Then Rasul Abu Bakr said, nevertheless, tell me, what do you think? He said, by Allah, I know that sariratahu khayrun min zahirihi. Sariratahu, what he hides is much better than what we see. What they know about Umar, he's tough. But he says, no, what is in his heart is much better than what we see. So Abu Bakr, he could continue to consult until he came to the conclusion that the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ, or in another word, what we call them Ahlul Halli wal Aqd. Ahlul Halli wal Aqd, the people who have the ability to tie and untie, means the one who represents the Ummah. The ones in which the Ummah respect and take their words as what? As an order, if you will. When they say something, the Ummah follows. So they all agree on Umar. Nevertheless, Umar was not taking the bay'ah until the death of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. After the death of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, Uthman radiyallahu anhu, he took the letter of Abu Bakr, he stood in the masjid and he read it, and then he called Umar and he gave him the Pledge of Allegiance. This is another style. The style that we're going to talk about in a little bit detail, which is the style of Uthman. How Uthman radiallahu anhu became a Khalifa. What was the process? Umar radiallahu anhu, when he was stabbed while praying al-Fajr by Abu Lu'lu'ah alayhi la'natullah, when he was bleeding and the Sahaba were like surrounding him, they told him, we need you to recommend somebody for us. Then he said, whom should I recommend for you? If Abu Ubaidah was alive, I would recommend him. And if Allah, look, they look at this as responsibility. They don't look at this as a luxury life, as something they want to gain and a position that they want to take over and then they get a lot of benefits. They were very careful. So look at his statement. He says, if Abu Ubaidah was here, I would recommend him for you. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked me, look how he thinks. He thinks on the day of judgment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might hold you accountable if you nominate somebody. He says, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks me, I will tell him, I heard your Prophet saying, إِنَّهُ أَمِينُ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ Abu Ubaidah is the trustworthy of this ummah, or he is the secretary of this ummah. And if Salim Mawla Abu Hudayfa, Salim Mawla Abi Hudayfa, and if Salim, the servant of Abi Hudayfa ibn Utbah, was alive, he was a slave. Salim was a slave. He said, if he's alive, I would also recommend him. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks me, I will tell him that I heard your Prophet saying, Inna Saliman shadidul hubbi lillah. That Salim loves Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a lot. Now somebody was sitting there and he said, why don't you recommend your son, Abdullah ibn Umar? Then Umar right away, he said, قاتلك Allah, may Allah fight you. Wallahi ma aradta Allah bihada. You are not seeking the face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with this. Wayhak, woe to you. How could I recommend somebody who was not even able to divorce his wife? That's another story between Abdullah ibn Umar and Umar, when Umar told him to divorce his wife and he could not. How could I nominate somebody to be the head of the state and he was not able to divorce his wife? He did not have the guts. He was not even has the courage to divorce his wife. This man would take care of the affairs of the people. We don't have any desire in your affairs. I did not praise this Khilafah. I did not praise this or seek this one so I can give it to one or nominate one of my household. If it was good, I got my share. If it was bad, it's enough that one from the house of Umar will stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be held accountable, to be asked about the Ummah of Muhammad. I have exerted myself during this, and I have deprived my family during this. And if I come out of this even, no sins, no reward, then I am happy. then I am happy. This is the reaction of these great Sahaba when they only care about the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the people, they departed and they told him, think about it. Then they came back. They said, we need your help. Nominate somebody for us. Then he said, I would nominate some people whom Ar-Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam died when he was pleased with them. And they are among the people of Jannah. These are Ali ibn Abi Talib, Uthman ibn Affan, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, wa Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, wa Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, wa Talhata ibn Ubaydillah. 6 people. 6 people promised Jannah. 6. He's saying, I nominate one of these 6 people. And I will add to the list Abdullah ibn Umar, not as a nominee, no, as a consultant. Just to give you a consultation in this matter. And he said, among these 6 people, they should choose and vote for one Khalifah. And he gave them deadline, 3 days. And he told them, if I die, consult among each other for 3 days, and during this time, let Suhaib pray or lead the prayer. And make sure that the 4th day does not come without Amir. Rasul after the Prophet 3 days. Abu Bakr with Umar, it did not take time. Umar, he gave them a deadline of 3 days. When you look at the elections nowadays, how long it takes? How much they spend, how much time they waste, how much money they waste? A lot. A lot. But in the Islamic State, it should not take more than 3 days. And this is while the Sahaba were listening and they agree. This is what we call it the consensus of the Sahaba. If it was something wrong, they would object, but none of them objected. Means they all agree with what Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu said. Only 3 days, not months and not days or years to play with this. And it's only when the Khalifa dies or he steps down or for whatever reason, not every 4 years to spend and waste the time of the people and all of these things. No, just 3 days. Just 3 days. Not that only. And he called a Sahabi from Ansar, Abu Talha al-Ansari, to guard and protect them while they are meeting and to encourage them to work hard in order to get this one achieved. And he said, Ya Abu Talha, O Abu Talha, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala supported Islam through you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dignified Islam through you. Choose 50 men among the Ansar and encourage those people to get this job done. And he asked another Sahabi, Al-Miqdad ibn al-Aswad, and he told him, you choose the place where they meet. And he said, if you bury me, he's telling Al-Miqdad and Abu Talha, if you bury me, gather those 6 people in one of the houses and keep them there until they choose one among them. And then he asked Suhaib to supervise and at the same time to lead the prayer during this process. So he told him, pray 3 days. Pray 3 days and make sure that this job will continue. And get Ali, Uthman, Al-Zubayr, Sa'd, wa Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, wa Talhata, if he comes, because Talha was absent. So we are end up with what? With 5 people. And bring Umar, Abdullah ibn Umar for consultation only. And stay there on their heads, means keep watching them. He's telling who? He's telling Suhaib. And keep watching the process. فإن اجتمع خمسة ورضوا رجلا. So if five of them, they agree from the six, they agree on one to be a Khalifa, and one among them did not agree, he said, فَاشْدَخْ رَأْسَهُ بِالسَّيْفِ, split his head into two halves. We're talking about who? 6 people from the people of Jannah, from people who are promised Jannah. Umar says, if somebody disagree, if 5 of them, right, or 4 of them, whatever, agrees on one, and one of them he's not agreeing, he's making trouble, فَاشْدَخْ رَأْسَهُ بِالسَّيْفِ. يعني it could be Uthman, it could be Ali, it could be Abdullah, Zubayr ibn Awam, it could be any of these great Sahaba. That tells us what? That tells us this matter is so important. It's even more important than the blood of a Sahabi. Not any Sahabi, a Sahabi promised Jannah. And he said, if 4 agree and 2 disagree, then kill both of them. And then he said, if they split into 3 and 3, 2 groups, 3 and 3, then ask Abdullah ibn Umar to choose one group. And if he was not able to choose among these 2 groups, then nominate one from the group that has Abdul Rahman ibn Auf among them. See, he's given like even more details how to do this process. And he said, if the other group that does not have Abdul Rahman ibn Auf and they don't agree, kill them all. فَاقْتُلُوا الْبَاقِينَ. And he said, don't discuss this issue while I'm alive, except when I died. So after the death of Umar, Al-Miqdad, he brought them and he put them all in the house of Aisha. And Abu Talha al-Ansari, he stood on the door with the 50 men, and he protected them and he prevented anyone to enter that house. Get the job done. You have 3 days only. It's very serious. It is so important. It's very crucial. It's a matter of life and death to them. So when they sit down, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu stood and he said, أيكم يخرج منها نفسه ويتقلدها على أن يوليها أفضلكم. He said, who among you will get himself out of this? Means he won't nominate himself as a Khalifa, but you accept his decision to choose the best among you. Right away Uthman said, I am the first to accept. Then Sa'd and Az-Zubayr, they said, we do accept you as a judge, or you run the show. Ali ibn Abi Talib kept silent. Then Abdul Rahman ibn Auf told him, what do you say, O Abu al-Hasan? First, actually, Uthman, when he said, I accept, he said, how would I not accept when Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you are a trustworthy in earth and a trustworthy in the heaven, about Abdul Rahman ibn Auf. So right away he accepted, Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Now, Ali radiallahu anhu, he told Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, before I give you my acceptance, you have to give me a covenant, a promise, that you will follow the haqq, that you won't follow your own desire, that you will not nominate one from your tribe or one from your relatives. Then Abdul Rahman ibn Auf said, first, you give me the covenant, you give me the promise. Okay? That to be with me on anyone who changes opinion later on. And to accept what I have chosen to you or for you. And I do give you the promise and give you the covenant that I will not give or nominate one among my relatives. They agreed. Then Abdul Rahman ibn Auf started his process. So he met with those 4 individually, telling him, I have a question for you. If it was not you or if you don't want it, whom among the four would you choose? Tell me, if it has to be, somebody else. Ali said, I will vote for Uthman. Uthman said, I will vote for Ali. Sa'd said, I will vote for Uthman. Az-Zubayr said, I will vote for Uthman. So he took their opinion. So he found out that the opinions are between these two. So now the list has been what? Shrinked from 4, from 6. 1 was absent. 5, Abdul Rahman took himself out. And then now the list is being shrinked. The nominees shrinked to 2, Uthman or Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhum. That was not enough. So Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, he went out that room and he started asking the people of Medina during the day, during the night, asking the men, asking the women, even asking the kids, reaching the people in their field, reaching the people in their business, going to their houses, knock in their doors. Whom do you vote for as a Khalifa? And he found out that the people between Ali and Uthman. And it says also that the Qurayshiyin, or the Qurayshi people, they are favoring Uthman more. They are favoring Uthman more. And once he consulted all of these people in Medina, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he went to and he find out that it's just between these two people. He went to his nephew. His name was Al-Miswar ibn Makhrama, and he was sleeping. It was night, before the Fajr. He knocked on the door, and he said, are you sleeping? He said, yes. He said, I did not even have enough sleep for 3 days. Working on this. So if we need to look at it in a summary form, so Umar radiallahu anhu died on Sunday, to the best of narrations, on Sunday, the beginning of Muharram, the year 24 Hijrah. He was stabbed 3 days before. Means he was stabbed like the last 4 days of Dhul Hijjah of the year 23. So that was what? That was Sunday. And Abdul Rahman ibn Auf finished his job on the morning of Wednesday. So 3 days and nights he did not even have enough sleep through all of this consultation. So he knocked on the door and he said to his nephew, are you sleeping? He said, yes. He said, I did not even sleep. Go and call Ali and Uthman and follow me to the masjid. So on the Fajr of Wednesday, he stood on the minbar, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, and he said, O people, I have asked you, sirran wa jahran, in public and secret, about your future Imam. فَلَمْ أَجِدْكُمْ تَعْدِلُونَ بِأَحَدِ هَذَيْنِ الرَّجُلَيْنِ, and I have seen you are divided between these two men, either Ali or Uthman. Then he looked at Ali and he told him, stand up, O Ali. And he said, would you accept the pledge of allegiance to rule with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sunnah of his Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and to follow the method of Abu Bakr and Umar? Means to follow the adoption of Abu Bakr and Umar. Ali said, no. Look, if we need to look at it, this is a chance. I will be the head of the state. I don't care. I will tell you, yes, I want to follow this, and then I will change. All of them, what they care about is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they look at this as a huge responsibility, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold you accountable about all of this, all of the ummah. He said, no, I won't take it. I will follow the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I will follow the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but I will have my own ijtihad. I will have my own understanding. I will have my own adoption. So I can give you the bay'ah on the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but why do I have to follow Umar and Abu Bakr? No. Then Abdul Rahman ibn Auf arsala yadahu means he released his hand, he took his hand back. Then he called Uthman. Uthman was sitting all the way back by the door of the masjid, all the way back, and he said, Uthman, come. Qif ya Uthman, stand up, O Uthman. So Uthman came and he said, would you accept the pledge of allegiance to rule with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and with the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to do the same action as Umar and Abu Bakr, as Abu Bakr and Umar? Uthman said, yes, I do. Very simple. That is the pledge. With these words, Uthman becomes what? Becomes the Khalifa, the third Khalifa of the Muslimin. Then Abdul Rahman ibn Auf radiallahu ta'ala anhu stood and he said, Allahumma asma' washhad, Allahumma inni ja'altu ma fi raqabati min dhalika fi raqabati Uthman. Oh Allah, hear and witness, I have taken this responsibility off of my neck and I am putting it on the neck of Uthman. Responsibility, huge responsibility. He doesn't want even to hold it. Then the people, they gathered around Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu and they gave them the bay'ah. And Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he rushed also between the people to give the bay'ah. And the people, they say, will never see, they never seen, what they call a consensus on a Khalifa like Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Radiallahu ta'ala anhu. During this, the one who led the Fajr prayer, even though the bay'ah started on Fajr time, the one who led the Fajr is still Suhaib, and the one who led the Dhuhr prayer is still Suhaib, and the one who led the Asr prayer is Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Ibn Kathir rahimahullah say in his book that this happened because the bay'ah was not completed and conducted completely until the Asr. Why? Because the Medina was full of people who came from different areas, and these are among Ahl al-Halw al-Aqd, as we said, among the shakers and the movers of the society and the community. So they took him back to the same house where they had the consultation until they finished the bay'ah to Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu in that house. And then Uthman led the prayer of Salat al-Asr. So this is what we have seen all here. This is a style. This is style. With Umar, Uthman, with Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, they were getting the bay'ah. As you see, ubayi'uk, I give you the pledge of allegiance. This is the way, this is the method to choose. This is the method to choose the representative. This is the method to choose our leader. And when we talk about this, we're not talking about this, as we said, as a history. This is fiqh. This is sharia. This is rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the way we choose our imams. This is the way we choose our leaders. Even though the styles are different. The Ummah was practicing voting and elections many decades ago. Even the first election that took place in Islam was right during the second pledge that the Ansar gave to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Bay'at al-Aqaba al-Thaniya, when he said, nominate 12 people to represent you. So this is not just a history, as we say. This is not just something that we join, we enjoy, we love, we like, we tell the story. No, this is fiqh. This is sharia. This is the way. This is what the ummah is missing nowadays. They were competing in pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it comes to the responsibility, they try to avoid it. But when they have to, they have to. When they have to step to the responsibility to fulfill the obligation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they would do it. And when they nominate themselves, when they accept that bay'ah, not for this dunya. No, they accept this bay'ah for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I would like to stop here, inshallah ta'ala, and then next time we will talk about the contributions or the work of Uthman during his Khilafah, or let's say his achievement during his Khilafah, and we will talk about three main things, which is the expansion of the Islamic State, and then the build of the first fleet, the Islamic fleet during the era of Uthman, and then one important action, which is the collection of Quran in one form, with one sound, or with one tongue. And that is one of the misconceptions that they create about Uthman, that he collected, he assembled the Quran and he did an action that Umar did not do and Abu Bakr did not know. How would you do that? And how would you burn? Actually, he burned all other masahif. Any mushaf outside these copies, it was burned. We, inshallah ta'ala, talk about this. Maybe we need 2 sessions for this, but we'll see how it goes, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair wa barakallahu feekum.